And they're the ones, so they used to be with the Canadian Horticulture Council. Now they're their own legal entity. It's a not-for-profit organization, and that's Canada Gap. And they're the ones who basically develop the materials in the binder. They're the ones who develop the requirements. They issue updates. They make sure that the binder is up to date, all the requirements are up to date, and they're current with, what the current standards are, basically in the produce world. So they've developed the program, but all they do is make sure that the materials are there, and then they also help the producers. They give out the materials to the producers. They don't issue any certificates themselves per se. They don't issue the certificates themselves. They just produce the standard. So from that, though, they license a third party to go out to the farms and check that the farms are doing, following the program appropriately. Sorry, I was not used to these automatic things. Okay, so that's Canada Gap. Then there's the producers. So for a producer to get started, they would go directly to Canada Gap to get the program materials and get started implementing the program. The Canada Gap has a website. It's canadagap.ca. On their website, they have all sorts of things, and I'm sure Emily will go over some of this, but they have resources for producers. You can download all these manuals electronically and all the materials. They also have training materials. They have hand washing posters, lots of different frequently asked questions, and then the resources you need to apply for certification. So then there's the certification body. So that's the third party that's licensed by Canada Gap to be the auditor. So I work for the auditing for GFDC. We're one of the four actually, licensed companies that can do audits for Canada Gap. So once a producer's ready, they filled out all their paperwork, they've got their program in place, then they can sign up to become certified. So they would send in their enrollment form to Canada Gap and choose an auditing body, and then the auditor would schedule to come out to check on what they're doing. So that's what I do. I'm an auditor, I train auditors, I review the reports. I'm also a consultant as well, but that's what our company does, basically. We also do other kinds of audits for other types of programs and certifications and stuff, and so on, but Canada Gap's our main one for produce firms. The other companies that do audits, so we're NSF GFTC, we used to be Guelph Food Technology Center. There's SAI Global, which is a company, their head office is in Toronto, but they have auditors who live all across Canada. SGS is a new one that came on for all of Ontario, and then there's another one that's specifically for Quebec, and that's BNQ. So in order for us to be able to do these audits, we have to be licensed by Canada Gap. We have to follow all of their policies and procedures. They tell us exactly how we have to do it. And then they also check up to make sure that we're doing things properly and we're not just making stuff up as we go. The government is involved sort of in a different way. They provide, first of all, support to the producers, like OMAFRA doing these sessions. They have a lot of reference materials, a lot of support materials for producers who want to get started. In addition, there's the Canadian Food and Inspection Agency, which is the federal government, and then all the other provincial governments too, because this is a national program. They were all involved in looking at the content of those manuals and making sure that it was, credible, scientifically sound, but still reasonable for producers to do. So even though that the Canada Gap program was developed with producer input, there was government oversight to make sure that the program is good. And then in addition, there's some other kind of global bodies that have oversight over the whole thing. And that's why it's a certification program and not an audit program. Because at GFTC we have other types of audits that you can do. We have just our regular GFTC Gap audit. And you get a certificate, but it's not official recognized certification. The reason that Canada Gap is, it's internationally recognized by this body called the Global Food Safety Initiative. So they've recognized Canada Gap meets the minimum standards for this for a global food safety program. And so because of that GFSI recognition, large retailers will accept Canada Gap because they know that it meets this kind of basic benchmark standard. For us, as a certification body, we have auditors. We also get audited. Every year, this accreditation body will come into our office and do an audit. They'll follow our auditors around, and they'll check our reports, and they'll check our system to make sure that we're doing things properly, that we're following our procedures, and we're keeping the records that we're supposed to be keeping. So we're also getting watched over as well. So that's sort of the whole system in a nutshell. So the people, as a producer, the people you'll be dealing with, and then of course there's a lot of support people on that, as like not here, who can provide you help, that can provide funding, that can give you additional information, consultants and the Greenbelt, and lots of different organizations involved.